Hey guys, so we've all heard about the Salem witch trials, right? Have to be living under a rock not to. But have you heard about the Connecticut witch trials? So these are fun. The Connecticut witch trials, which are also sometimes referred to as the Hartford witch trials, occurred from 1647 to 1663. They were the first large-scale witch trials in the American colonies, and they predated Salem witch trials by nearly 30 years. There were a total of 37 cases, 11 of which resulted in executions. The execution of Alice Young in Windsor in the spring of 1647 was the beginning of the witch panic in the area, which would not come to an end until 1670 with the release of Catherine Harrison. Well, you may be asking, why haven't we heard about this? Why isn't there as much information as there is on Salem? Well, there's a couple possibilities. Possibility one is it was a neglect on record keeping. I kind of find that hard to believe because witches kind of a big deal. Or possibility two, which is a lot more likely in my opinion. It was covered up to keep the stain of witchcraft from marring Connecticut's history. Now, despite this, there is enough existing evidence to gain an insight into the culture of witchcraft trials at the time. In the early days of the trials, Reverend Samuel Stone of Hartford, Joseph Haynes of Wethersfield, and Samuel Hooker of Farmington served on what was called a prosecutional tribunal. And this contradicted the traditional idea that prosecutors should remain skeptical and immune to public pressure to convict. Thomas Wells was the magistrate during the trials. As popular belief during the time, the magistrates of Connecticut relied on evidence. Oh gosh, lost my train of thought. They relied on evidence of the devil's involvement in inflicting harm to secure conviction of witchcraft, but such evidence could easily be found through battering interrogations. Now, there are three, and I'm using air quotes here, I know you can't see, three witches of import during this. The first, Alice Young. Where's her thingy? There it is. She was the first person executed for witchcraft not only in Connecticut, but likely in the whole of the American colonies. On May 26, 1647, she was executed in Hartford. Her execution was recorded in the journals of John Winthrop, the governor of Massachusetts Bay, and Matthew Grant, the second town clerk of Windsor. There are no further surviving records on Young's trial or specification of the charges against her. Around the time of the trial, an influenza epidemic occurred throughout the New England area, including her hometown of Windsor, which may have influenced the accusations against her. Young was likely married or related to John Young of Windsor and may have been eligible to inherit his property, which may have made her an even more attractive target. The second we have Ms. Mary Johnson. Mary Johnson's was the first recorded confession of witchcraft. She worked as a house servant and was accused of theft in 1648. After extensive torture and interrogation, Johnson confessed to, quote, familiarity with the devil, unquote. She also confessed to having sexual relationships with men and devils and to murdering a child. Her execution was delayed as she was pregnant during her imprisonment in Hartford. Johnson was executed June 6, 1650. Now, I'm sorry, but she confessed to murdering a child and they indicted her on witchcraft. One of these things seems a little bit more serious than the other, but I digress. Our third person of note, Miss Catherine Harrison, was a former maidservant of Captain John Culloch and the widow of Wethersfield town crier. Harrison was born in England and came to America around 1651. She became a wealthy citizen of Wethersfield, Connecticut after she inherited her husband's estate worth 1,000 pounds. Harrison experienced several legal problems, including the death of her livestock and destruction of her crops. Though her losses were supported by eyewitnesses, she received no compensation. In 1668, she was sued for slandering Goody Griswold. Between 1668 and 1669, Harrison was also accused of witchcraft. The accusations against her included breaking the Sabbath, fortune-telling, and using black magic, as well as appearing in spectral form to people. She was also accused of calling the devil by the swarm. On May 11, 1669, she was moved to the local jail to await her trial. Harrison's trial faced many complications. The first jury never reached a decision. The second found her guilty, but the magistrates disagreed as most of the evidence was spectral, which relied solely on the accuser. In May of 1670, Harrison was released from prison, banished from Connecticut, and she and her family relocated to New York, as they had already planned to do. And we do have some major places in this as well. The first is Wethersfield. During the 1650s, several people were tried for witchcraft through the Connecticut area. In Wethersfield, Joan and John Carrington were executed in 1651. They were prominent members of the Wethersfield community before being accused of witchcraft. Wethersfield was also the home of Mary Johnson, the first open confessor of witchcraft, and Catherine Harrison. This resulted in the coining the term Wethersfield witches. Then we have Hartford. In 1662 and 1663, the town of Hartford saw a surge in witch hysteria. A series of accusations were made among the townsfolk. The first accusation was by Anne Cole, who accused Rebecca Greensmith and Elizabeth Seeger of tormenting her through magic. The parents of Elizabeth Kelly accused Goody Ayres of using black magic to kill their daughter. Other claims of black magic from Hartford are more peculiar. One person claimed Satan caused her to speak with an accent. Another said her neighbors transformed into animals at night. Catherine Branch, serving to the Westcott family, suffered from a series of fits and other instances that Daniel Westcott described as being beyond nature, like elevating above the bed. A minister from a neighboring village claimed Branch's afflictions were the result of her declining to join a witch coven. From Hartford, 4 people were executed for the crime of witchcraft. We have Nathaniel and Rebecca Greensmith, Mary Sanford, and Mary Barnes, and they were hanged in 1662. Elizabeth Seeger was accused of witchcraft, but the charges were dropped due to weak evidence. By 1663, the witchcraft trials in Hartford were beginning to wind down, due in no small part to the return of the governor of the Connecticut colony, John Winthrop Jr. Winthrop was generally regarded as New England's quintessential agitator of witchcraft cases, due to not only his status as the son of governor of Massachusetts, but also to his first-hand knowledge of natural magical practices associated with alchemy, a mystical form of chemical experimentation. Because of his experience with alchemy and having seen John Dee and Robert Flood, 2 major influences in Winthrop's studies, stand against false accusations of witchcraft, Winthrop often involved himself in witchcraft cases to ensure that the accused were not executed. His return and the involvement in the trials ushered in a period of increasing skepticism towards accusations of witchcraft, and in 1669, it was Winthrop's court that established that multiple witnesses needed to bear witness to the same act of witchcraft simultaneously. This significantly stemmed the flow of accusations, and despite a minor panic during the Salem crisis later, no witches were executed in Connecticut after Catherine Harrison's release in 1670. So what happened after? Well, on October 6, 2012, descendant of the executed petitioned the Connecticut government to posthumously pardon the victims, but the motion was not passed. In 2007, Addie Avery communicated with British government in an attempt to acquit the convicted witches. Addie Avery was a descendant of Mary Sanford, who was executed for dancing around a tree while drinking liquor. Well, I guess that makes me a witch. Avery has also been informed in many theatrical performances about the Connecticut witch trial, such as The Witching Hour. On February 6, 2017, the town of Windsor unanimously passed a resolution to symbolically clear the names of the town's 2 victims, Alice Young and Lydia Gilbert. A documentary about the passage of this resolution entitled Delayed Justice, Windsor Atones for its Witch Trial History, produced through the Windsor Community Television, can be accessed through the internet. Several individuals arranged memorial services for the victims of the witch trials in Windsor in June of 2017. The memorial for Connecticut's witch trial victims marked the 370th anniversary of Alice Young's execution. And on May 10th, 2023, just earlier this year, like 3 months ago, the Connecticut House of Representatives voted 121 in favor and 30 against in order to exonerate 12 people who were convicted of witchcraft in the colonial era. How do you have 30 people against exonerating people that have been dead for 300 plus years? On May 26th, the Connecticut State Senate voted 33-1 to pardon the same group on the 376th anniversary of the first witch hanging in New England, which was Alice Young. I hope that this has been enlightening for you, give you some information you didn't have, a little bit more insight. As always, like, subscribe, follow, and I will have many, many more of these throughout New England history, folklore, myths, all that such. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.